please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
It's a very good start for them.
All right, there goes the bell. Thank you for that photo finish, Prakash. The markets are starting at 10,413 and the Sensex at 10,890 thereabouts. So it's 100 up on the Sensex, 35 up on the Nifty, a third of a percent. It's not a huge opening considering the tailwind that the markets had from the global news, but it's fairly positive for the mid-cap index, which is up about almost 0.5%, 0.45 up, giving a very positive advanced declines ratio of almost 5 stocks in the green for 1 in the red. But of course, these are opening minutes of trade. Metal stocks leading from the front, as Nigel told you they would. Hindalco, Vedanta up between 3 and 5%. Hindalco is actually up 5%, and I would think NALCO would also be in that company. Yes, that one is up 3%. Axis Bank gets a huge thumbs up, actually. Certainty at the top, change of leadership by December, and a smooth change of guard or so it seems. So that's up 1.5. Tata Steel up 1.5. Tata Motors 1. Yes Bank 1%. Cipla, UPL, Titan,
Even
Adani
ICICI is up, Lata, actually.
All right.
ICICI is up almost 0.6% now, so that one also is looking quite okay.
Okay, that's saying a lot, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, considering the amount of negative news that we got yesterday, especially with the Fitch report, the stock in the green is telling
Rating
you
agencies
something.
normally are the last to raise concern.
But this time I thought they raised concern a little ahead of anyone.
But in the past, when rating agencies sort of downgrade, that bottoms.
Is my deposit endengered by the news that's going on? It's not. So I was a little shocked by that.
The market intelligence is that when rating agencies, come and raise, red flag,
then the story is over.
Then the story is over because when rating agencies upgrade, that's the top. When they downgrade, that's the bottom.
No, but here they did not. They only put out a note. So my point was that what was the cause for at all putting? You do that only if your deposits. If you think ICICI can't pay back its loans or something like that. I didn't see the reason for it. Anyways, the point is the stock has not been impacted by it at the moment, taking it in the stride, a third of a percent higher on the Nifty.
Okay, I've got sugar for you. As we were just discussing with Mitesh, there's a bit of a trading bounce that's underway. So stocks like Dhampur, Balrampur, most of them are on the upside. Alembic, there's a buyback. There's a 6% up move on that stock. The Max twins are in news as well because of the fundraising and the fact that they're buying out their insurance joint venture partners. So the Max stocks are open, have also opened positive. Then there are others like Gravita where they've commissioned a plant recently. So lots of stocks in news that are bouncing around. Bhushan Steel, by the way, is down 1.5%. I'm just taking that on note, because officially L&T has raised its objection to the Tata Steel bid. So for what it's worth, just marking that news. Other stocks that stand out, beyond the Nifty 50, then NALCO, it's pretty much participating in that entire aluminum metals rally. So that's one stock you can't afford to ignore. Some of these stocks like Global Spirits that were rallying yesterday, they continue to move higher. Suzlon's up about 2% thereabouts. So these are some of the other names that stand out. Aside of this, I don't see too many major losers on the downside. Maybe an Apollo Tyres is kind of taking things a little easy. And then this entire clutch of indebted stocks, Alok, IVR sales of the world, GTL Infra, most of these stocks are still running, as we saw yesterday as well. So, Anuj, now how would you classify this? 30 points up on the Nifty, Bank Nifty looking okay with a gain of almost 100 right now?
I think it's a good start, so there'll be absolutely no doubt about it. Yes, it could have been better, but we are sitting on back-to-back gains. I think metals really is the space to focus on. You're having a bit of a trend start on metals. I just want to pull out intraday chart, for example, of a Tata Steel. That one also, after a bit of a correction, has been moving up. So I think the global metal plays are the ones where you're seeing quite a bit of rally, and of course, a couple of banks doing well, but. Let's see, it's 10,427 as we discussed is a massive resistance, so it all boils down to your risk reward right now, whether you want to bet on that being crossed or you want to just take your money home if you've been sitting from 10,000. But Ashwini, your thoughts on market opening, and is there a trade on the index?
See, I think you should be buying into possibly Axis Bank and ICICI Bank. They could have a big day today. Because probably ICICI Bank, people are hoping that it also gets the hint. But overall, just early morning dip and one that should be bought. I would think at some point you should resume the upside, particularly on banking. But for the moment in the morning, I think Balrampur Chini is doing very well, Hindalco, NALCO, etc. But I would think more short covering on private banks can happen.
Okay. Sudarshan, anything that you are looking at now as a trading idea? I mean, my point is the market started 1/3% higher, now they are 1/4% higher. So, I mean, I'm not saying 5 minutes is a trend, but the high didn't hold. Sudarshan, anything on that?
No, the highs can come again. It's too early. And I'm hoping that we go and make new highs because that's where we want to sell into. I'm being patient. I think we'll see a rally intraday. So that should come, as Ashwini just explained, and I fully agree. But that is a selling opportunity for me. United Spirits is a buy for the day and for a positional trade both.
Okay.
Okay, Mitesh, what's catching your eye? Anything specific? Or, can one? The question is, can one still take fresh trades on a Hindalco, NALCO, if you've missed the bus yesterday?
This was me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think NALCO we had a trade yesterday and Hindalco a couple of days back. I think between the two, if I was to choose right now, Hindalco I think around 234, 235 I would be suggesting profit booking. I think there was a falling gap which happened on the 5th of March and that will be a very difficult level for the stock to get past. So maybe not the best time to take long positions, but if you have them, I think another 2-3% higher. Take some profits.
Okay, by the way, now market is picking up once again. The Bank Nifty is now at the high of the morning, led by once again ICICI Bank. Just pull out that stock intraday, now approaching 285 on that stock. Really, that along with Axis
is 2% higher.
Is exactly is putting quite. And these are two stocks which have 25% of the Bank Nifty, and this was one pocket which was really impacting the Bank Nifty rally. Other stocks never had a problem. Yes, HDFC Bank is doing the balancing act, but others have always been good. So looking quite okay. Ashwini, what would be the big call of the day? Go after the Bank Nifty, chase it, or metals would be a better play?
See, I'm chasing the Bank Nifty because metals is kind of, known, and it was known for the last couple of days. I think ICICI Bank and Axis Bank could have a big day today.
Okay, that's saying a lot. We will look forward to further trading strategies from all three of you. Thank you very much for joining us, Mitesh, Sudarshan and Ashwini. And thank you very much, Prakash, for giving us your fundamental perspective on so many stocks. With that, let us invite our market master for the morning. S. Naren, Executive Director and CIO, ICICI Prudential AMC, joins us now. Good morning, Naren. Always a pleasure having you with us. First up, there is this big news that greeted us even as we began Bazaar. Xi Jinping calling a truce almost, as it were, and agreeing to every term that President Trump laid out for him. What does this say of the global backdrop now?
No, clearly, if you look at the global backdrop, growth has been picking up, earnings has been picking up, the economy seems to be picking up. So I thought that the real problem can come due to much higher interest rates in the world. And I don't think if people had looked at 2 months back, people were looking at trade war as the biggest problem. People were looking at higher interest rates as the biggest problem. I think that is a problem that can happen over the next 12 to 18 months, but temporarily at this point of time, I think the global economy seems to be in very good shape.
Okay, by the way, metals really picking up some more pace now, and there are a lot of stocks participating now. For example, SAIL, Tata Steel, so steel also doing well. Apart from that, consumption is doing well once again. So Godrej Consumer, the holding company Godrej, all these stocks also. United Breweries up about 2%. We have Nestle also at the high point, so that space doing well. Naren, good morning. Consumption, do you think it's getting its mojo back? Quite a bit of buying off late.
Money. See, clearly our view has been that in the period prior to elections, consumption is a very good theme. And we believe that that theme has a lot of legs over the course of the next 1 year. Having said that, some of the stocks in that theme are not cheap. So, you have to hunt for the cheaper stocks in the theme because the theme has a very good outlook over the next 2 years. And we have a belief that it is one of the best themes to invest in over the next 2 years if you find the right stocks at the right valuations. So we have always been positive, and we have become more positive courtesy the fact that we believe that the easy returns in many of the small caps and mid caps have all happened over the course of 2017, and it is time to take a more defensive kind of positioning from a thematic perspective.
Naren, before we talk more sectors and ideas, your thoughts on the flows data that came out kind of rattled people. I mean, March is a bit of an aberration month perhaps, but how did you read it? I mean, where's the money gone, the redemptions, and what should we expect April onwards?
See, first of all, I think March trends in most years are never clear. You have to remember it's the last month of the year, and it is a month to close your books of account, pay your last installment of advance tax, invest in tax saving schemes. So I think whatever data which comes out in March, I believe I don't give too much importance to. And I believe that while the flows may have slowed down a bit, they've all slowed down from such a high base that actually if you look at many of the year-on-year trends, I think flows appear to be pretty comfortable. Having said that, I think it's important that investors do get decent returns on their investment, and as long as people are getting returns which are reasonable, I expect flows to actually continue the way they have been.
Okay, you said from a very high base. So you already seen the first 10 days of April. What is a normalized flow that you can project for April and May? Should we get used to 16 to 20,000, or was that the aberration and truth lies somewhere between 6,000 and 16,000?
I think for the market it won't be material whether it is 12,000 or 18,000, and at this point of time I think the flows seem reasonably good, but I think it's difficult to again look at the first 10 days of April because people had a long 5-day break, the banking system had a 5-day break. So I believe that April first half is never the most active period, and I think the period to measure would be going forward rather than now. But at this point of time, I would say flows is not a problem at this point of time. I think clearly if I look at valuations on the small and mid caps are not cheap at this point of time. So I would say flows are less of a problem than valuations in certain parts of the market.
Okay. Well, Naren, this was a question I genuinely wanted to ask you. I think it was in early 2017 that Naren pointed out telecom for us as beleaguered enough to be bought. And I think you rode all the way from 300 to 500 if you did stay with your stocks at that time. Now people are talking about power. There is clearly a expectation of growing demand ahead of elections and supply not increasing for some time now. Is that a sector you would look at?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you look at most of the portfolios that I manage, I would say utilities is one of the biggest overweights among all the sectors. The principal thought process came from the fact that, no new power plants are being planned by most of the private sector, and therefore we actually had a view that it's a sector with a very good long-term outlook, because at the end of the day every year power demand is going to go up, and while renewable has been growing, renewable does not produce power in all parts of the day. So that's why for us it has been one of our top picks as a sector over the last 1 to 1.5 years. Actually, it hasn't played out in the last 1.5 years to the extent that we thought it would. But I think the outlook for the next 1 year or 3 years or 5 years for the sector look good, because most of the companies which are investment worthy have a very, very good outlook, and there are a number of companies which are not investment worthy, and they will be the people who will give market share away to the investment worthy companies.
So, Naren, we are heading into another result season, as usual, kick-started by IT. How do you find that sector? Because there's still a debate whether structurally things are now looking better, or whether it was just a place to hide really in this market.
See, actually, it's a sector where if market trends are going to suggest returns which are not very high, I think it's a sector which will do well. On the other hand, if you start believing in 20% return in markets, it's not a sector which is going to do well when the market is, if the market is going to give you 20% return. So if you look at the last 6 months when the overall market slowed, it has been a big outperformer. And the period prior to that, it was a big underperformer when the markets were actually doing very well. So our view is it's an outperformer in low market return situations, and it's an underperformer in high market return situations.
Okay, a couple of NBFCs doing well now. Cholamandalam, for example. Larsen is highs of the day now. Nifty is at the highs of the morning. 10,415 is what we have on that one. Naren, what's the bigger risk factor now from here on? We have one part of the equation apparently solved with the US-China standoff. Domestic situation right now, we have a lot of elections this year. Could that be a bit of a spoil spot, starting with Karnataka in May, and of course big ones in the second half of the year?
See, I think global interest rates and local political developments, these are two areas which would create volatility in the next 12 to 18 months. And coming off a situation where the mid and small caps are costly, and we have a situation where, the medium-term return prospects for the next 1-2 years should not be very high. But we are of the view that as long as investors are willing to look and invest for the next 5 years or 10 years, I think the current market actually presents a lot of opportunities. That's how we've been looking at it.
Okay. Final question to you, Naren. What in the finance space would you like now?
See, we have been, if you look at both some of the retail banks and NBFCs, those valuations are not cheap at all. So you have to look at the rest of the space, which has done very badly in the last 6-7 years. And I would say that those are all sectors and stocks to look at for the next 3 to 5 years. And having said that, given that the sector is very volatile and periodically you have, the earnings has not come in that space, I would say it's useful to cap the weightages, but I think the outlook on those spaces is looking pretty good. So I would not be willing to bet on NBFCs at this point of time, simply because they had the big benefit of when interest rates came down, their cost of borrowing came down significantly, and that helped them a lot. So our belief is that the non-NBFC finance sector should be something which is worth looking at. And even the insurance and newly listed plays across all the financial space, which has come from different sectors in finance, I think they are the other areas of a lot of interest at this point of time.
Okay, we will leave it at that. Thank you very much, Naren, for joining us with your thoughts this morning. It's been an eventful morning. Well, there was a reason why I asked Naren about financials, the non-NBFCs, as he puts it, banks. I mean, usually we always look at finances as banks and not as non-bank companies. Will still go through a pain because of the last gush of NPAs that may come after the Reserve Bank's recent rules, and many among them are likely to be power companies. At least a clutch of 35 companies, 35 power companies of over 2,000 crore in value are likely to be taken to the NCLT if they are not resolved earlier. What does this mean for the power sector, and of course other issues? To speak to us about what would be the government perspective, Ajay Kumar Bhalla, Power Secretary, joins us now. Good morning, Mr. Bhalla. There are so many questions to ask you, but let me start first with this potential bunch of companies that have stressed loans. If not resolved, they will be taken to the NCLT. What's the government's view? So many, probably 30, 35 companies coming to the NCLT.
See, some of these companies are already in the process of getting resolved. If you recall, some time back there was an auction of coal linkage Shakti to about 10 plants. Now that the coal has started flowing, I mean FSAs have been signed, PPAs have been revised, and those plants are supposed to be turning around now. So I mean like there are different reasons for different plants. So wherever possible we are addressing those. Now the areas like lack of equity by the promoters, bankers are looking at it whether the change of ownership can help. I mean they have about 6 months time to do it. In that time, if they are able to find a new buyer, they will be able to do it. Now, there are some cases like where the coal blocks have got into disputes despite auction because of aggressive bids by some of the promoters. Now, these are the areas where again Shakti policy has catered for coal linkage or e-auction of coal, which can address to these plants also. And on top of that, what we are doing as a pilot, which I mentioned earlier also, about 2,500 megawatt aggregation we are trying to do as a pilot to see whether in medium term this can bring in some PPAs and some of these plants can sell their power. So that process is ready. PFC on behalf of government would be doing this tendering through an aggregator. Let's see what happens in that case.
2,500 megawatts. You said 2,500 megawatts, sir?
Interventions we have made at different points. Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, if I looked at the APPAI's report, there are 51 gigawatts, 51,000 megawatts that are under stress. Of this, if you take away Mundra, because both Tatas and Adanis are deep-pocketed investors, then you are still left with 43,000 megawatts, sir. You're talking about 2,500. Of this 43,000, probably about 9,000 are gas-based plants where really there isn't any hope at all that anything will happen. No, gas-based is 10,581 megawatts. There are remaining 19,700 megawatts which have projects with domestic coal but no PPA, imported coal but no PPA, and projects with no coal and no PPA. Together it is 19,700 plus 10,500 gas. We are looking at, you know, at least 32,000 where who will buy if there is no PPA? What's the government's answer to those 32,000 megawatts?
See, originally, I mean, there was coal-based stress was about 40,000 megawatts, out of which, because of Shakti, more than 10,000 has already been retrieved. And wherever we are able to get some additional power, there has been growth in the recent times. And in exchange also, the prices are going up, and some of these plants would be able to sell coal in the exchange also. So demand is on the up. I mean, let's see how it goes. I mean, as I said, 10,000 megawatts have been brought out of coal intervention only. Let's see as a trial if we can do little more for the coal-based plants. And if it picks up, then definitely we'll repeat the pilot and then it becomes a system that DISCOM start contracting on a medium-term basis.
Okay, to just take that point forward, Mr. Bhalla, if you could put in context the current demand-supply situation. I'm looking at the the exchange. Even today, clearing rates on IEX are about 3.5 thereabouts. And then there have been reports, because spot rates are rising, that maybe DISCOMs are willing to now do PPAs. So that could, of course, alleviate stress for a lot of entities that can't find power buyers. So if you could just, you know, connect the dots for us and put it in context.
See, there has been little shortage of coal in some of the power plants. And some of the power had to be backed on because of high demand but lack of coal availability in some power plants. So that definitely has pushed the coal prices in the power prices in the exchange. You know, exchange is a very good indicator of stock of coal in the power plants. But now, I mean, in the month of March, we have almost on an average got 274 rakes per day. And we have been able to build the stocks of about 16 plus million tons in the power plants, which is about 10-day stock. Still, some of the plants are with lesser stock also, but efforts are on to build on. But in month of January, February and March, the growth has been more than 5% month-to-month basis. Overall growth definitely in the country is 5.2%. And coal-based growth is 4.5% if we discount the renewables out of it. Now, in that case, I mean, there is definitely utilization of coal also was very, very high. For few months in the year, the coal consumption was more than the coal receipt. So the stocks got depleted in the first few months of the financial year. But now again, we have built up the stocks. Now with this, I mean, the other indication is that yes, there is a growth and some of these plants are turning around. Let me tell you that state governments have excess PPAs already in their kitty, and some of the state government discoms had surrendered the PPAs to us at times, saying that we don't want this coal. The trend is reversing. We have now request from the state governments to get back their quota which was allotted earlier and start getting power. Already, I mean, our DVC and NTPC are getting these PPAs signed.
Okay. No, I take your point, sir, that PPAs are, more PPAs would be an answer. But we don't have discoms that have deep pockets, and we don't have state governments that have deep pockets. So, I mean, I'm still coming back to my first question. The clock has started ticking. March 1st, the Reserve Bank's clock started, and it ends on September 30th. At that time, 32,000 megawatts, possibly, or even more, could come to the NCLT. Should there not be an overarching plan? Separately, the State Bank of India chairman has also written to the government about the Mundra plant, and, you know, whether you can continue to expect even big groups like Tata's and Adani's to run a plant which every unit that is produced is going to create a loss for them. So really, two questions for you. Does the government of India have anything for that 32,000 which will come to the NCLT first?
As I said, I mean, our interventions are basically to facilitate coal availability.
Sir, that was, yeah, Mr. Bhalla, you know, I have taken your point on that, sir.
Extra PPAs.
Sir, I have taken your point on that. You know, 10,000 megawatts has brought the amount of stress probably from, you know, 45,000 to closer to 35,000. But that 35,000 is still left, and you have all of 5 months or less than that, 4.5 months for that to be resolved. So is there some national, you know, bad bank that can buy this?
Tell me a plant. See, then let's look at some of the cases. If the promoter had bid an aggressive PPA and the tariff is so low, I mean, even if it is taken over by another owner, it will not be able to sell power at that price. It will not be viable to sell the power at that price because he is not able to service the debt. So bankers have looked at many of these plants and have put them on either SDR or S4A or different options which were available to them. Wherever takers are there, bankers are settling with them, and hopefully by September they would be able to. But wherever there are no takers for these plants, I don't think we have any other alternative but to go to NCLT.
So, sir, last simple question. Really, one fails to understand the sanctity of PPAs, and I know we've discussed this in the past as well, then when rates shoot up, spot rates shoot up, now you're saying that states are willing to consider PPAs again. When rates are down, they throw their hands up and say that no, we'd rather buy from the spot market. Are you looking at a permanent fix for this? Because how does a corporation run a power plant without having any sanctity to the power purchase agreement?
No, definitely we have not accepted any state governments surrendering PPAs just like that, and we have insisted upon this power to be bought under the PPA. It's a pure contract between the two parties which needs to be honored. Government of India has been very, very clearly mentioning it to the state governments and discoms that they have to honor the power purchase agreements they have signed. So, I mean, there are in some PPAs there were clauses to mutually sort of come out of the power purchase agreements, which some of the states have used, and even the generator has also accepted the compensation payments and all. So those are the, I mean, purely contractual clauses. One has to look at each case separately and look at it. As far as Government of India is concerned, our advisory, our policy is very clear that these PPAs need to be honored. These are contractual commitments of the discoms.
Okay, so sir, you will be okay with 32,000 megawatts going for liquidation? Not NCLT, liquidation.
Not all will not go for liquidation. As I said, bankers, yeah, I am saying it does not go to NCLT also. Some of these plants are under already restructuring with the bankers, and it was under restructuring in the previous, before the RBI circular. So bankers, some of the places, bankers are hopeful. I mean, I may not have progress of each and every plant right now with me, but we understand from our PFC, REC type of NBFCs that some of the projects could be, which are easily retrievable, bankers would be able to, provided they get a reasonable value for it.
Okay, so how many, from that APPAI list, which you must be very familiar with, how many do you think can be salvaged? And how many may go to NCLT and liquidation?
It will be difficult for me to say because I don't have the status of each and every plant up to date with me. But there are efforts going on in the plants which are possible to be retrieved.
Will half be saved,
some of the plants where promoters have lost all, no equity available. It's very difficult to put numbers. As I said, each plant has a different problem. In some places, the DISCOM dues could be a problem, and there we are intervening and trying to get the DISCOMs release payments to these plants. In some cases, the equity has run dry. I mean, bankers are looking at a new owner. Like this, there are different baskets. I mean, one has to look at what can be retrieved and what cannot be.
Can you leave us with
and let's see, by September, some of these definitely will turn around.
So, sir, we take your point that all of it will not go for liquidation. Can you leave us with a rough ratio where you think that within the NCLT process, there will be resolution? There will be buyers and, some of the issues, whether it's PPAs, whether it's coal availability, or DISCOM payments, you'll be able to intervene and solve. So, therefore, the new buyer has reason to buy the asset. And the residual that might end up in liquidation. So, maybe some numbers, some guidance on this, sir.
No, I mean, very difficult to say. As I said, some of the plants where construction has just started and nothing much is available on the ground, bankers also won't be able to find a solution to it. So those plants definitely go to NCLT. But plants which are commissioned, which are having some financial issues, bankers can retrieve it. Definitely, bankers are interested in not losing the money which they have put in these plants. So they would like to retrieve whatever is possible. And whatever assistance is required from the government is willing to provide that. We are ready with whatever possibility of facilitation is required, we would do that.
Okay, so we will have occasion to invite you yet again, sir, when you have more clarity on how many plants can be saved. But at the moment, it is 51,800 megawatts that are completely built and stressed, and another 23,091 which are under construction and are going to get stressed. So we are looking
let me add the private plants. The PLF for the 17-18 is on the up. They have crossed the 60% mark also in this financial year.
Okay, yes.
So there is definitely a turnaround of PLF increasing beyond 60.
Yeah, I take your point, sir, 61%, but that's still a long way off from making them break even. Thank you very much for your patience and for speaking to us at CNBC TV18.
Okay.